Standing at the base of the Great Pyramid of Giza, you can't help but feel the sheer magnitude of human ingenuity towering above you. But here's something that might send a shiver down your spine. This ancient wonder isn't just a feat of engineering. It's aligned with near-perfect precision to Earth's magnetic grid. How could a civilization thousands of years ago achieve such accuracy without the tools we take for granted today? This isn't just about the pyramids, though. From the stone circles of Europe to the vast temples of South America, our ancestors left behind clues that suggest they understood forces we're only beginning to fully grasp. Did ancient peoples comprehend Earth's magnetic grid? The evidence might surprise you. Think about the last time you used a compass. That simple device relies on Earth's magnetic field to point you north, a discovery often credited to scientists centuries after the pyramids were built. Yet, long before modern technology, cultures across the globe seemed to navigate vast distances, build structures aligned with celestial events, and even encode magnetic knowledge into their myths and legends. Could it be that they were tapping into something far more profound than we've given them credit for? Stories of lodestones pulling metal, rituals tied to the poles, and even ancient maps hint at a sophistication that challenges our timeline of scientific discovery. This journey isn't just about unraveling the past, it's about reimagining what's possible. What if the wisdom of ancient civilizations wasn't lost but simply waiting to be rediscovered? As we explore megalithic sites, decipher cryptic texts, and examine artifacts with fresh eyes, we'll piece together a puzzle that bridges the gap between then and now. By the end of this video, you might just see history and our planet in a whole new light. So let's step into the unknown together and uncover the secrets hidden in the very fabric of the Earth itself. The answers are closer than you think. Earth's magnetic field isn't just a modern scientific concept, it's a living, shifting force that has shaped our planet for billions of years. Picture this: deep beneath your feet, a swirling ocean of molten iron churns in Earth's outer core, generating electrical currents that create our protective magnetic shield. This invisible web of energy stretches from the planet's interior far into space, deflecting solar winds and guiding everything from migrating whales to homing pigeons. Modern researchers use satellites and sensitive magnetometers to study these forces. But here's the fascinating twist: ancient peoples may have observed and harnessed this phenomenon using nothing more than naturally occurring magnetic rocks. Take lodestone, for example. This special form of magnetite found across the globe has a remarkable property: it always points toward magnetic north when suspended freely. Archaeological evidence suggests cultures from China to Mesoamerica were using lodestones for orientation centuries before formal compasses appeared in historical records. The Olmecs of ancient Mexico crafted polished magnetic mirrors, while Chinese diviners used south-pointing lodestones in elaborate rituals. These weren't just curiosities, they were early technologies interacting directly with Earth's magnetic blueprint. What's even more astonishing is how this knowledge might have influenced sacred architecture. The Great Pyramid's near-perfect alignment with cardinal directions isn't an isolated case. Over 60% of Neolithic tombs in Portugal face northeast, the exact direction where the magnetic poles stood when they were built. Temples in India, stone circles in Britain, even the mysterious Moai statues of Easter Island all show alignments that correlate with either magnetic or astronomical directions. Could these patterns be coincidence, or did ancient builders possess a sophisticated understanding of planetary forces we're only now rediscovering? Modern experiments reveal even more intriguing possibilities. When researchers examined 2,000-year-old Chinese bronze vessels, they found something extraordinary. The artifacts retained magnetic signatures matching Earth's field from the time they were cast. This suggests ancient metalworkers may have deliberately aligned their creations with magnetic north during production, possibly as part of spiritual practices or technological processes lost to time. Similar magnetic anomalies appear in Mesoamerican sculptures and even Viking navigation tools, hinting at a widespread tradition of magnetic observation spanning continents and eras. The deeper we look, the more we find connections between ancient wisdom and Earth's invisible forces. From the way Polynesian navigators read ocean swells influenced by magnetic fields to Native American legends describing spirit lines, matching magnetic pathways, our ancestors seem to have woven magnetic understanding into their very worldview. While we may never know the full extent of their knowledge, one thing becomes clear: the relationship between humanity and Earth's magnetic grid is far older and far more profound than we ever imagined. Lodestone wasn't just another rock to ancient civilizations, it was a portal to understanding invisible cosmic forces. When suspended from a thread, this naturally magnetic mineral would reliably turn toward the north, behaving like a living thing drawn to some unseen power. The Chinese Han Dynasty didn't just stumble upon this phenomenon, they perfected it. By the 2nd century BCE, they'd carved lodestone into delicate spoons that rotated on polished bronze plates, creating the world's first geomantic compasses. But these weren't mere navigation tools. Archaeologists found them buried in tombs alongside divination boards, suggesting they served as bridges between earthly and celestial realms. Halfway across the world, the Olmecs worked similar magic with magnetism. Their sculptors carved massive basalt heads weighing up to 20 tons, each carefully oriented along magnetic axes. Even more intriguing are the small jade figurines discovered near La Venta. When placed on flat surfaces, these artifacts pivot to face magnetic north like miniature compasses. What's startling is how they often depict figures in motion, as if frozen mid-ritual dance aligned with Earth's invisible currents. Were these objects wayfinders for spiritual journeys rather than physical ones? The sophistication only deepens when we examine how these cultures manipulated lodestone's properties. Chinese metallurgists discovered that heating and cooling iron in the presence of lodestone could transfer its magnetic charge, a process modern scientists call thermoremanent magnetization. Meanwhile, Greek philosophers like Thales wrote of lodestone's soul that could move iron, while the Vikings may have used magnetized iron needles to navigate cloudy seas centuries before mainstream Europe adopted compasses. Perhaps most compelling are the recurring patterns across disconnected cultures. From the Maya's magnetic turtle effigies to the Egyptian practice of aligning temples with lodestone-bearing bedrock, we see a global tapestry of magnetic awareness. Recent studies of Hopewell burial mounds in North America reveal ceremonial objects placed along precise magnetic alignments, while Polynesian oral histories speak of stone fish that would guide voyagers when submerged in water. These weren't isolated observations, they formed a sophisticated, if intuitive, understanding of planetary forces. The burning question remains: how much did they truly comprehend? While they lacked our scientific vocabulary, their artifacts prove they recognized magnetism as a fundamental cosmic force. Whether through ritual or practical application, they harnessed it with precision that still baffles researchers today. What we dismiss as primitive superstition might actually represent a different kind of science, one that wove together physical observation and spiritual understanding in ways we're only beginning to decode. The Great Pyramid's alignment isn't just about impressive engineering, it's about precision that defies explanation. every side of this ancient structure points almost perfectly toward true north, south, east, and west, with an error margin smaller than 1/15 of a degree. To put that in perspective, even modern architects using satellite technology would struggle to achieve such accuracy, but here's where it gets stranger. Recent studies using muon radiography, a type of cosmic ray scanning, revealed something unexpected. The pyramid's internal chambers create measurable distortions in Earth's magnetic field, almost as if the structure itself interacts with invisible forces. What could explain this phenomenon? The answer might lie in the materials themselves. The pyramid's inner chambers are lined with granite blocks containing high concentrations of magnetite and quartz. When subjected to pressure, like the immense weight of the pyramid above, these minerals can generate weak electrical currents through something called the piezoelectric effect. Even more fascinating, the pyramid's outer casing stones, now mostly lost to time, were made of highly polished white limestone that may have acted as an insulator, creating a controlled environment for whatever energy interactions were occurring inside. Then there's the king's chamber, where the granite walls contain pockets of ionized air, a feature that shouldn't exist naturally in such a sealed space. Researchers have speculated this could be residual evidence of some ancient energy manipulating technology, though mainstream science remains skeptical. But consider this: ancient Egyptian texts speak of the pyramid as a machine, with inscriptions describing rituals involving directing the paths of heaven. Could these be metaphors for harnessing Earth's magnetic forces? The pyramid's magnetic properties become even more intriguing when we examine its global counterparts. Over in Bosnia, the controversial Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, whether natural or man-made, exhibits similar electromagnetic anomalies, with beams of energy reportedly shooting from its apex. In China, the mysterious Xi'an pyramids align along what some researchers call dragon lines, ley lines that may correlate with magnetic pathways. These parallels suggest that if the Great Pyramid's magnetic features were intentional, they might represent fragments of a lost worldwide tradition of geomantic architecture. Perhaps the most compelling clue comes from the pyramid's original capstone, long since missing. Historical accounts describe it as covered in electrum, a gold-silver alloy known for its conductive properties. If this capstone functioned like a giant antenna, could it have interacted with atmospheric electricity or Earth's magnetic field? While we may never know for certain, one thing is clear: the Great Pyramid stands not just as a tomb or monument, but as a silent witness to knowledge that challenges our understanding of ancient technological sophistication. Its stones may hold secrets we're only beginning to decipher, secrets written not in hieroglyphs, but in the very magnetism of the Earth itself. Stonehenge stands silent on the English plains, its massive stones arranged in patterns that have puzzled researchers for centuries. We've long known about its connection to solar and lunar cycles, the way its arches frame the summer solstice sunrise or the winter moon's path. But what if there's another layer to this ancient mystery, one tied not to the skies above but to the invisible forces beneath our feet? Recent scans reveal something startling. Certain stones at Stonehenge carry strong magnetic signatures, their polarity flipped in ways that don't match Earth's current magnetic field. This suggests they were positioned during a time when the planet's magnetism was dramatically different, a detail our ancestors shouldn't have been able to detect without advanced tools. Take the bluestones, for instance. These smaller pillars, hauled all the way from Wales' Preseli Hills, have a unique secret. Laboratory tests show they contain high concentrations of magnetite, a mineral that interacts strongly with Earth's magnetic field. Even more intriguing when exposed to heat, like the ritual fires burned at Stonehenge for centuries, these stones can temporarily amplify local magnetic fields. Could this explain why ancient builders went to such extraordinary lengths to transport them? Imagine standing in the circle during a ceremony, feeling the very air hum with energy as heated stones altered the magnetic environment around you. To a culture attuned to Earth's unseen forces, this wouldn't just be spectacle, it might have been sacred technology. The evidence grows stranger when we examine the site's layout. Modern surveys show magnetic hotspots concentrated along the monument's inner horseshoe of trilithons, while the outer sarsen stones form a near-perfect magnetic shield, dampening interference from external fields. This precise arrangement creates what some researchers call a geomagnetic sweet spot at the center, a place where Earth's natural magnetism would have been most stable and detectable. If true, it would mean Stonehenge's architects didn't just observe magnetism, they engineered ways to manipulate it. Then there's the curious case of the heel stone, standing solitary outside the main circle. Unlike the others, it's riddled with iron-rich inclusions that generate measurable magnetic distortions. On certain mornings, when dew covers its surface, these anomalies become visible as swirling patterns in the moisture, almost like a map of invisible forces. Local folklore speaks of the stone drawing down power from the sky, while medieval records describe travelers using it to reorient lost compasses, coincidence or echoes of forgotten knowledge. What truly challenges conventional timelines is the possibility that Stonehenge's builders tracked magnetic shifts over generations. Earth's poles wander slowly, and the monument's alignments seem to correspond not just to one era's magnetic north, but to multiple positions across centuries. Some researchers propose that the site's phased construction, spanning nearly 1,500 years, allowed successive generations to recalibrate the stones, creating a living record of planetary changes. This wouldn't just require observation, it would demand a tradition of precise measurement passed down through dozens of lifetimes. From the magnetic quartz veins in the altar stone to the way the entire complex aligns with nearby ley lines, hypothetical energy pathways some believe follow magnetic currents, Stonehenge increasingly appears less like a simple calendar and more like a multidimensional observatory. Whether its creators understood magnetism as a scientific force or revered it as a divine presence, one thing is clear: they built in harmony with powers we're only now learning to measure. As modern scientists continue scanning the site with magnetometers and ground-penetrating radar, each new discovery peels back another layer, revealing a prehistoric masterpiece far more sophisticated than we ever imagined. Polynesian navigators didn't need compasses to conquer the Pacific. They read the ocean like a living map. But their legendary voyages across thousands of miles of open water might hold clues to something deeper than stellar navigation. Oral traditions speak of tilapa, flashes of light beneath the waves that some researchers now believe could describe bioluminescent plankton disturbed by magnetic anomalies. These faint glimmers, visible only to trained eyes on moonless nights, may have traced invisible magnetic pathways across the sea. Modern experiments show that certain marine organisms cluster along geomagnetic lines, creating biological signatures ancient sailors could have learned to follow. The Vikings' sunstone legend takes on new meaning when we examine their sagas more closely. Beyond using calcite crystals to locate the sun through clouds, Norse texts describe sigil stones, magnetized iron-rich rocks that allegedly pulled ships toward land. Archaeologists found evidence of these practices in Greenland, where Viking settlements aligned iron rivets in longhouses to magnetic north. Even their burials reveal careful attention to polarity, with swords and tools placed along specific magnetic axes. This wasn't random. It suggests a systematic understanding that magnetic forces could guide both the living and the dead. What's truly remarkable is how these cultures developed parallel technologies despite being oceans apart. Polynesian navigators memorized star compasses with 32 directional points, not unlike the 32 wind roses on medieval European compass cards. Both systems may have roots in observing how magnetized objects behave. In the South Pacific, master navigators still teach how to sense mana, the life force they believe flows through magnetic pathways in the earth. Meanwhile, Icelandic sagas describe heroes using lodestone staffs that trembled when pointed toward certain mountains rich in iron ore. Modern science is catching up to these ancient insights. Researchers recently discovered that sea turtles and migratory birds navigate using magnetite crystals in their brains, a biological compass evolution perfected over millennia. If animals can sense Earth's magnetic field, why not humans? Studies show some people unconsciously align their sleeping positions along magnetic north-south axes, while others demonstrate a measurable, if subtle, ability to detect magnetic shifts. This suggests our ancestors' navigation skills might have relied on senses we've since neglected, honed through generations of close observation. The implications rewrite history's assumptions. When Polynesians spoke of flying their canoes along the bones of the ocean, they may have been describing magnetic ley lines. Viking references to the black sun that guides when the white sun sleeps could encode knowledge of magnetic polar shifts. These weren't primitive superstitions, they were sophisticated environmental sciences expressed through cultural metaphors. As we rediscover these lost connections between human intuition and planetary forces, we're not just uncovering ancient navigation secrets, we're reclaiming a forgotten dialogue with the Earth itself. Buried in the dusty archives of the National Museum of Iraq lies an object that shouldn't exist, a simple clay pot no taller than your hand, sealed with asphalt and containing a copper cylinder wrapped around an iron rod. Discovered in 1936 near Baghdad, this unassuming artifact might rewrite our understanding of ancient innovation. When filled with an acidic liquid like vinegar or wine, reconstructions show it can produce up to 2 volts of electricity, enough to create a tingling sensation or even electroplate small objects with gold. But here's what truly sparks the imagination. Electricity and magnetism are 2 sides of the same cosmic force. If ancient Mesopotamians were generating currents, did they also witness how electrified wires could deflect compass needles or make iron filings dance? The implications are staggering. While mainstream archaeology debates whether the Baghdad Battery was merely a storage vessel, surviving texts from the same era hint at deeper knowledge. Cuneiform tablets describe medical treatments involving shining fish that numbed patients, possibly electric eels, or could they be referencing man-made shocks? Even more telling are accounts of gold that clung to silver without fire, a process modern science recognizes as electroplating. Nearby excavations uncovered gilded artifacts with microscopically thin layers of gold, far more consistent with electrochemical deposition than traditional hammering. What if this wasn't an isolated experiment but part of a broader tradition? Across the ancient world, we find curious parallels. Egyptian temple reliefs show priests holding elongated objects emitting wavy lines interpreted by some researchers as symbolic representations of electrical discharge. The Dendera-like carvings, often dismissed as mythological scenes, bear an uncanny resemblance to modern Crookes tubes used to demonstrate cathode rays. Meanwhile, Greco-Roman medical texts describe using torpedo fish shocks to treat headaches, suggesting at least practical awareness of bioelectricity. The real mystery lies in how these cultures might have connected the dots between electricity and magnetism. A Baghdad battery connected in series could theoretically create a magnetic field strong enough to move a lodestone, an effect that wouldn't have gone unnoticed by observant scholars. Persian alchemists wrote of invisible threads that moved metals without touch, while Indian Vedic texts speak of Vajra, a weapon that made hair stand on end and iron objects cling together. Could these be fragmented descriptions of electromagnetic phenomena? Perhaps most compelling is the timing. The Baghdad Battery dates to the Parthian period, when Mesopotamia was a crossroads of Greek, Persian, and Indian knowledge. This was an age of extraordinary synthesis where astronomers calculated planetary motions with precision and engineers built intricate clockwork mechanisms. In such an environment, the leap from generating electricity to exploring its magnetic effects wouldn't be unimaginable. Yet by the time modern science rediscovered these principles in the 19th century, all traces of this ancient insight had vanished from the historical record. Whether the Baghdad Battery was a medical device, a religious object, or a tool for metallurgy, its existence challenges the linear narrative of scientific progress. It stands as a silent witness to a forgotten chapter of experimentation, one where humanity may have glimpsed the invisible threads binding electricity to magnetism, only for that knowledge to slip through the fingers of time. What other breakthroughs might have been lost in the shadows of antiquity, waiting to be unearthed by curious minds? Ancient texts from cultures separated by oceans and millennia whisper secrets that sound eerily familiar to modern ears. In the Hindu Surya Siddhanta, composed over 1500 years ago, verses describe a river of power flowing through the bones of the earth, a force said to guide birds in flight and draw metal to stone. Meanwhile, Greek philosopher Thales of Miletus wrote of Lodestone's soul that could animate iron, while Plato's Timaeus speaks of invisible threads of necessity binding the cosmos together. These aren't isolated poetic flourishes. From Chinese Taoist texts referencing dragon currents to Norse sagas describing the world serpent's breath, cultures worldwide preserved strikingly similar descriptions of what we now recognize as magnetic phenomena. The challenge lies in decoding metaphor from observation. When the ancient Indian text Rigveda describes Indra's Vajra weapon causing hair to stand on end and metals to cling without touch, is this merely mythological imagery or a coded account of electromagnetic effects? Scholar Subhash Kak points to Sanskrit technical terms like ayas for specially prepared iron and shabda yantra for resonance devices that hint at sophisticated material science. Similarly, Roman historian Pliny the Elder's account of a magnetic statue in Alexandria said to levitate between ceiling and floor lodestones reads like fable until you consider modern experiments with diamagnetic materials. Perhaps most compelling are the practical manuals that survived alongside sacred texts. The Chinese Huananzi, written in the 2nd century BC, details how to craft a south pointer using magnetized needles balanced on a fingernail, a clear precursor to the compass. Yet it also warns that the force weakens when near fire or crossed metals, demonstrating precise empirical knowledge of magnetic properties. Over in Mesoamerica, the Dresden Codex contains almanacs for tracking Venus that align with magnetic declination shifts over centuries, suggesting systematic observation beyond simple astronomy. The real mystery emerges when these texts describe phenomena beyond simple attraction. The Jain text Tattvartha Sutra speaks of earth-binding energy varying by location, a possible reference to magnetic field intensity. Greek engineer Hero of Alexandria wrote of temple doors that opened automatically when fires were lit, which some historians speculate could have used thermal expansion interacting with magnetic components. Even more startling are medieval Arabic manuscripts describing the mountain that calls iron to itself, complete with instructions for calculating magnetic deviation, knowledge Europe wouldn't rediscover until the age of Columbus. What connects these fragments is their insistence that such forces were neither magical nor divine, but natural phenomena to be studied and utilized. The Vishnu Purana compares Earth's magnetism to the pull between lover and beloved, while Egyptian coffin texts describe the deceased navigating the afterlife using iron that knows north. This persistent interplay between poetry and precision suggests ancient scholars weren't just guessing. They were documenting a sophisticated understanding of Earth's invisible architecture. As modern researchers cross-reference these texts with archaeological finds, we're left wondering how much was lost in translation and how many myths might still hold untapped scientific insight. High atop Scotland's windswept hills, the ruins of Tap o' Nath stand as a silent enigma. Its massive stone walls fused together by heat so intense that the rocks melted into a glassy, obsidian-like crust. This bizarre phenomenon isn't unique. Over 60 similar vitrified forts dot the European landscape from France to Bohemia, their stones transformed by temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit hotter than a volcano's lava. Archaeologists have puzzled over these sites for centuries. Conventional explanations point to invading armies torching the walls or lightning strikes superheating the stones. But here's the catch: the vitrification isn't random. It follows precise patterns, often concentrated in the fort's innermost chambers or along geometrically aligned sections of the ramparts. What could generate such controlled, localized heat? Experiments using ancient techniques show that ordinary fires barely reach half the required temperature, while lightning tends to leave erratic scorch marks rather than uniform glacification. This has led alternative researchers to propose something extraordinary, that these forts might have been exposed to directed electromagnetic energy. Modern plasma physicists note that certain high-energy discharges can vitrify stone in laboratory settings, creating effects eerily similar to those seen at Tap o' Nath and its counterparts. Even more intriguing, many of these forts sit atop geological fault lines or areas with unusually high magnetic anomalies, as if deliberately positioned at convergence points in Earth's energy grid. Local legends add fuel to the mystery. Scottish folklore speaks of the Shining Ones who built glowing fortresses, while French chronicles describe the vitrified walls of Peyron, giving off an eerie luminescence during thunderstorms. Could these accounts preserve ancestral memories of technologies harnessing terrestrial energy? The architectural details suggest more than accident. Some forts feature layered stonework alternating between vitrified and non-vitrified sections, implying possible intentional control over the heating process. At Croatia's Gradina Istokna, vitrification forms precise geometric patterns resembling circuit board tracings, a detail that has inspired comparisons to modern energy manipulation techniques. The plot thickens when we examine the mineral composition of these sites. X-ray fluorescence scans reveal that vitrified sections contain unusually high concentrations of iron oxide and quartz materials known to amplify electromagnetic effects. In certain configurations, these substances can theoretically form primitive capacitors or even generate piezoelectric charges when subjected to mechanical stress. While mainstream archaeology remains skeptical, independent researchers have documented measurable electromagnetic anomalies at several forts, with compass needles spinning erratically near vitrified zones. Perhaps most compelling is the global context. Similar vitrified stonework appears in India's mysterious Ramappa temple, where local texts attribute the fused pillars to the touch of celestial weapons, and in Peru's Saxehuaman, where legends tell of walls that flowed like water before solidifying. These parallels hint at a potential worldwide tradition of geomantic engineering, a lost science of shaping landscapes through Earth's inherent energies. Whether the vitrified forts of Europe represent defensive technology, ritual spaces, or something beyond our current understanding, their glassy stones stand as mute witnesses to an ancient mastery of forces we're only beginning to rediscover. The answers may lie not in the flames of war, but in the invisible currents that still pulse beneath our feet. Ley lines stretch across the landscape like invisible threads connecting ancient monuments, sacred sites, and natural landmarks. These alignments, first popularized by amateur archaeologist Alfred Watkins in the 1920s, were initially thought to be prehistoric trade routes or pilgrimage paths. But when modern researchers began mapping these lines against geomagnetic surveys, something unexpected emerged. Many ley lines follow precise magnetic fault lines, areas where Earth's magnetic field fluctuates in measurable ways. Take the St. Michael Line, a legendary ley stretching from Cornwall to Norfolk in England. Along this path, you'll find Glastonbury Tor, Avebury Stone Circle, and other sacred sites, all sitting atop magnetic anomalies strong enough to deflect compass needles. The connection grows even stronger when we look globally. Peru's Nazca lines, those massive geoglyphs etched into the desert, align not just with solstice sunrises but with underground magnetic currents detected by satellite surveys. Indigenous oral histories describe these lines as paths of the gods, routes where spiritual energy flowed. Modern instruments reveal these same pathways correspond with subtle shifts in the local magnetic field, almost as if the ancients were mapping something invisible to the naked eye. Similar patterns appear in Australia's songlines, where Aboriginal traditions speak of dreaming tracks that correlate with magnetic ley lines running hundreds of miles across the outback. What's the practical purpose behind these alignments? One compelling theory suggests ley lines served as ancient navigation aids. Before compasses, travelers could have used standing stones or temple markers positioned along magnetic pathways to maintain direction across vast distances. Experimental archaeologist Tom Brooks demonstrated that many Neolithic sites in Britain form precise geometric triangles, alignments so accurate that statistically they couldn't be random. Even more intriguing, these triangles often intersect at points with measurable magnetic disturbances, hinting at deliberate placement. Beyond navigation, there's evidence these lines played a role in energy manipulation. Certain megalithic structures, like Karnak's standing stones in France, generate weak but detectable electromagnetic fields when struck by sunlight due to their high quartz content. Local legends speak of the stones singing at dawn, a phenomenon modern researchers attribute to piezoelectric effects. Could ancient builders have harnessed these properties, using ley lines as conduits for energy we're only beginning to understand? The Hopi people of North America describe a similar concept. Their kiva ceremonial chambers are traditionally built along magnetic lines they call the breath of the earth, believed to amplify spiritual practices. The spiritual dimension of ley lines can't be ignored. From the dragon lines of Chinese feng shui to the Native American medicine wheels aligned with magnetic north, cultures worldwide revered these pathways as connections between the physical and spiritual realms. Medieval cathedrals, often built on pre-Christian sacred sites, frequently align with magnetic ley lines. Chartres Cathedral in France sits directly atop a crossing of two major lines, with its labyrinth positioned at the exact point where magnetic readings peak. Modern dowsers report feeling energy surges at these intersections, though scientific explanations remain elusive. Critics argue ley lines are mere coincidence, the result of confirmation bias selecting random alignments from countless ancient sites. Yet the magnetic evidence is harder to dismiss. Satellite magnetometry reveals that many ley lines follow geological features, fault lines, iron deposits, underground water flows, all of which influence local magnetic fields. Whether by intuition or design, ancient cultures seem to have recognized and marked these energetic pathways in ways that still resonate today. As we walk these ancient alignments with modern instruments in hand, we're left wondering, were ley lines humanity's first attempt to chart the invisible forces that pulse beneath the surface of our world? Deep beneath the temple of Apollo at Delphi, where the Pythia once breathed in vapors to channel the gods, the earth hums with more than just geological activity. Recent geological surveys reveal something astonishing. The sacred site straddles a major intersection of magnetic fault lines, creating localized distortions in Earth's magnetic field. While historians long focused on the ethylene gas seeping from the limestone fissures as the source of the oracle's trances, new research suggests these electromagnetic anomalies may have played an equally pivotal role. Laboratory studies show that exposure to weak, fluctuating magnetic fields like those measured at Delphi can alter brainwave patterns, inducing states ranging from heightened focus to vivid hallucinations. The implications are profound. Ancient priests didn't just stumble upon this location, they may have methodically selected it. Geological records indicate the site was active for over 2,000 years, with successive cultures maintaining its use despite wars and regime changes. Why such unwavering dedication? Because Delphi's unique combination of intoxicating gases and magnetic turbulence created what neurologists now call a neurotheological hotspot, a place where the human brain becomes unusually susceptible to transcendent experiences. The priests elaborate rituals, fasting, chewing laurel leaves, sitting on a tripod directly above the fissure, may have been carefully calibrated protocols to amplify these effects. Consider the descriptions left by ancient visitors. Plutarch, who served as a priest at Delphi, wrote of a sweet-smelling breeze that filled the temple before prophecies, accompanied by a tingling in the limbs. Modern recreations using magnetic fields of similar strength to Delphi's produce eerily similar physiological responses: prickling skin, altered time perception, and even out-of-body sensations. Even more telling are the temple's architectural features. The Aditon, the oracle's inner chamber, was built with iron-rich stones that would have interacted with the local magnetic fields, while underground water channels may have acted as natural conductors, creating a subtle but measurable electromagnetic environment. This wasn't isolated to Greece. Across the ancient world, sacred sites share this magnetic signature. Turkey's Temple of Apollo at Didyma sits atop a nearly identical geological formation, with magnetic surveys showing comparable fluctuations. In Italy, the Sibyl's Cave at Cumae, home to Rome's most famous oracle, harbors both ethylene-emitting fractures and magnetic anomalies. Even the Hebrew Bible describes prophets experiencing visions near fiery stones, which some scholars now interpret as references to magnetite-rich formations. These parallels suggest a widespread, if intuitive, understanding that certain landscapes could bridge the human and divine. The real revelation lies in how deliberately these forces were harnessed. At Delphi, priests used a bronze omphalos stone studded with iron nodules to mark the navel of the world. Recent scans reveal this artifact generates its own localized magnetic field when exposed to heat, potentially acting as a ritual focus point. Nearby, archaeologists found evidence of iron braziers positioned to interact with the natural magnetic currents, possibly creating shifting fields that guided the oracle's trances. This level of precision implies generations of observation and experimentation, a sacred science lost to time. What modern researchers are rediscovering isn't just ancient superstition, but a sophisticated interplay between geology, neurology, and spirituality. The oracle's prophecies may have been less about supernatural intervention and more about humanity's innate capacity to tap into Earth's subtle energies, a forgotten dialogue between our biology and the planet's hidden forces. As we decode these ancient practices with magnetic sensors and brain imaging, we're not just uncovering the secrets of Delphi, we're glimpsing a lost chapter in the story of human consciousness. The massive stone walls of Saxehuaman rise above Cusco like the teeth of some primordial giant, their interlocking blocks weighing up to 300 tons yet fitting together so precisely that not even a razor blade can slide between them. What's often overlooked is how these stones and countless other megaliths worldwide align with uncanny precision to Earth's magnetic field. Modern laser scans reveal that Saxehuaman's zigzagging walls follow exact cardinal directions, with certain sections amplifying local magnetic anomalies. But here's what truly defies explanation. The same phenomenon appears in Japan's Asuka stones, where ancient engineers carved massive monoliths with surfaces that generate measurable magnetic distortions when exposed to sunlight. Halfway across the world, the Baalbek Terrace in Lebanon presents another enigma. Its foundation stones, some weighing nearly 1,000 tons, were quarried miles away and lifted into place with inexplicable precision, all while aligning to magnetic north with an error margin smaller than modern engineers achieve with GPS. Local legends speak of the stones moving like birds when touched by rods made of a special metal, hinting at forgotten technologies that might have interacted with Earth's magnetic field. Even more intriguing are the magnetic surveys showing that the entire complex sits atop a convergence of subterranean iron deposits, creating a natural amplification of geomagnetic forces. The patterns only deepen when we examine construction techniques, from the polygonal masonry of Peru to the submerged Yonaguni monument off Japan's coast. Builders consistently selected stones rich in magnetite or quartz minerals known to interact with electromagnetic fields. In Turkey's Hattusa, the capital of the Hittite Empire, archaeologists found wedge-shaped stones positioned along magnetic fault lines, their arrangement creating localized energy hotspots still detectable today. Similarly, the Karnak stones in France, over 3,000 megaliths stretching across 4 miles, align not just with solstice sunrises, but with underground magnetic currents that cause compass needles to spin erratically at certain points. What connects these distant cultures? The answer might lie in their shared reverence for the unseen. Indigenous oral histories from the Andes to Siberia describe megalithic sites as places where the earth speaks, where shamans could access hidden knowledge by listening to the stones. Modern experiments lend credence to these accounts when subjected to pressure or vibration. The granite used in many megaliths generates weak electrical currents through the piezoelectric effect. In sacred spaces like Peru's Coricancha or Britain's Rollright stones, these subtle energies could have created environments where altered states of consciousness were more accessible, turning stone circles into portals of perception. The most compelling evidence comes from the rocks themselves. Geochemical analysis of megaliths from over 50 sites reveals a startling consistency. Nearly 80% contain crystalline structures that act as natural conductors. The dolmens of Korea's Gochang County, for instance, emit low-frequency electromagnetic pulses during certain lunar phases, while Malta's Hypogeum's resonant chambers amplify Earth's natural magnetic frequencies to audible levels. This wasn't accidental. It suggests a global tradition of geomancy, an ancient science of shaping landscapes to harmonize with planetary forces we're only beginning to measure. Whether by intuition or advanced understanding, these megalithic architects seem to have tapped into a universal language written in stone and magnetism. Their legacy challenges us to reconsider not just how they built, but why, and what secrets might still lie encoded in the alignments of these silent sentinels of the past. Deep in the Nubian desert, the ruins of ancient mines stretch for miles, their tunnels carved into rock rich with veins of shimmering magnetite. These weren't just utilitarian excavations. Archaeologists have uncovered ceremonial chambers deep underground, where miners left offerings of polished magnetic stones arranged in geometric patterns. Similar sites dot the Andes, where pre-Incan cultures tunneled through mountains to extract hematite, a mineral that retains magnetic signatures. While these ores certainly had practical uses, from pigments to toolmaking, their presence in sacred contexts suggests something far more profound. In Egypt's Valley of the Kings, tomb walls bear instructions for placing magnetite amulets on mummies to guide the soul through celestial currents, while Chinese jade burial suits were stitched with threads containing magnetite beads aligned to the cardinal directions. The ritual use of these minerals wasn't arbitrary. Modern experiments show that sleeping with magnetite near the head can alter brainwave patterns, inducing vivid dreams, a phenomenon that might explain why ancient Greek oracles slept on lodestone pillows before delivering prophecies. In Mesoamerica, the Olmecs crafted concave mirrors from magnetite-rich hematite, capable of starting fires by concentrating sunlight, but also possibly used to project magnetic fields during rituals. The Dogon people of Mali, renowned for their astronomical knowledge, still use magnetite powder in initiation ceremonies, claiming it helps see the invisible threads binding earth and sky. What's striking is the consistency across cultures. From the Aboriginal songlines of Australia, where magnetite-laden stones mark sacred pathways, to the Viking sunstones mentioned in Norse sagas, these materials were treated as conduits between worlds. Recent scans of Neolithic burial mounds in Ireland reveal magnetite fragments positioned to create localized magnetic fields, their polarity aligned to the solstice sunrise. This precision suggests more than superstition. It hints at systematic observation of how these minerals interacted with Earth's forces. The mining techniques themselves raise questions. In South Africa's Lion Cavern, one of the oldest known mines dates back 43,000 years, with evidence that ancient miners followed magnetic anomalies to locate the richest ore deposits. How did they detect these invisible cues? Some researchers propose they used dowsing rods made of antiferromagnetic materials like copper, which vibrate when crossing magnetic gradients, a technique still employed by traditional miners in the Andes today. Perhaps the most compelling evidence comes from the mineral's altered states. Analysis of ceremonial hematite artifacts shows many were intentionally heated to enhance their magnetic properties, a process modern science calls thermoimmanent magnetization. The Hopewell culture of North America buried their dead with magnetite cubes that had been ritually charged in bonfires, creating permanent magnetic dipoles. Were these practices merely symbolic, or did ancient peoples grasp that they were manipulating something fundamental about the fabric of reality? From the magnetic oracle bones of Shang Dynasty China to the magnetite-lined initiation chambers of Eleusis, these stones served as bridges between the physical and spiritual realms. Their legacy challenges us to reconsider the origins of humanity's relationship with magnetism, not as a recent scientific discovery, but as an ancient dialogue written in stone and ritual waiting to be deciphered. The Dogon people's understanding of the cosmos stretches far beyond what simple observation could explain. For generations, their oral traditions have described Sirius B, a dense white dwarf star orbiting Sirius centuries before telescopes confirmed its existence. But their knowledge runs deeper than astronomy. Their creation myths speak of a spiral force that shaped the universe, a concept bearing uncanny resemblance to modern descriptions of galactic magnetic fields. When tribal elders trace this spiral in the sand during rituals, moving their hands in counterclockwise motions, They mirror the rotational patterns of electromagnetic energy observed in astrophysics today. What makes this even more compelling is how the Dogon integrate this cosmic awareness with earthly phenomena. Their initiation rituals involve iron-rich meteorite fragments called tellum, which they claim fell from Sirius. Laboratory analysis reveals these fragments contain unusually high concentrations of magnetite, arranged in crystalline structures that generate weak but measurable magnetic fields. During ceremonies, elders place these stones in precise geometric formations, aligning them with the rising points of certain stars while chanting about threads that bind sky to land. Modern geomagnetic surveys of these ritual sites show localized fluctuations that correspond with celestial events, suggesting the Dogon may have recognized the interplay between cosmic and terrestrial magnetism long before Western science. Critics argue this knowledge could have been introduced by European visitors in the 19th century, but the evidence tells a different story. Dogon cosmological diagrams, preserved on ancient cave walls and ritual objects, depict Sirius as part of a binary system with accurate orbital periods, details science only confirmed in the 1960s. Even more telling are their descriptions of Nummo, amphibious beings who they say brought this wisdom from the stars. These entities are described as shining ones who moved stones using invisible hands, a phrase that resonates with modern experiments showing how magnetic fields can manipulate objects through diamagnetic levitation. The Dogon's connection to magnetism might extend beyond mythology into practical technology. Their irrigation systems, which channel water across Mali's arid plains using precisely angled canals, follow alignments that match magnetic declination patterns from centuries ago. Some researchers propose these waterways acted as primitive magnetometers, with iron-rich sediments in the water creating detectable disturbances when the canals crossed magnetic anomalies. Similarly, their granaries built with alternating layers of magnetic and non-magnetic stone show evidence of intentionally controlling interior humidity through electromagnetic interactions, a technique modern architects are only now rediscovering. Perhaps most provocative are the Dogon's own claims about their heritage. They speak of a time when the sky and earth spoke as one, when initiates could ride the spiral to commune with celestial forces. While anthropologists dismiss this as poetic metaphor, recent studies of the Dogon's sacred sites reveal something extraordinary. The stones used in their most ancient shrines emit low-frequency electromagnetic pulses during specific planetary alignments, pulses strong enough to influence human brainwave activity. This raises a haunting possibility that the Dogon didn't just understand magnetism as an abstract concept, but as a living force to be harnessed in rituals bridging the cosmic and the terrestrial. Whether their wisdom came from meticulous observation, forgotten technologies, or something more enigmatic, the Dogon challenge our assumptions about ancient scientific knowledge. In their spiral dances and star-aligned rituals, we glimpse a worldview where magnetism wasn't just a physical phenomenon, it was the sacred thread connecting humanity to the universe itself. As modern science begins to explore the bioelectromagnetic nature of consciousness, we may find that the Dogon's most profound insights are only now, millennia later, coming into focus. Nikola Tesla once wrote of Earth as a colossal conductor, humming with untapped energy, an idea dismissed in his time but now gaining traction among modern physicists. Yet standing among the towering T-shaped pillars of Göbekli Tepe, it's hard not to wonder, did someone uncover this secret 12,000 years earlier? This prehistoric temple, older than Stonehenge by 6 millennia, features massive limestone columns carved with intricate reliefs of animals and abstract symbols. But what truly baffles researchers are the pillars' precise alignments, not just to celestial events, but to underground water veins and magnetic fault lines. Some of these monoliths contain embedded quartz crystals, a mineral known to generate piezoelectric charges under pressure, while others stand atop natural electromagnetic hotspots still detectable today. The parallels with Tesla's vision are uncanny. His Wardenclyffe Tower, designed to wirelessly transmit energy through the Earth's crust, shared eerie similarities with Göbekli Tepe's lay-out central pillars surrounded by concentric rings, positioned atop aquifers that could theoretically amplify electromagnetic waves. Ancient builders couldn't have known modern physics, yet their structures mimic principles we're only beginning to harness. Take the temple's Pillar 43, nicknamed the Vulture Stone. Its carvings depict a scorpion, a bird, and a circle with a smaller sphere, a configuration some researchers interpret as a celestial map, while others suggest it might represent energy flowing between Earth and sky. This isn't isolated to Turkey. Across the Pacific, the Moai statues of Easter Island stand on platforms called Ahu, built with magnetite-rich stones that generate localized magnetic anomalies. Oral traditions speak of the statue's ability to draw mana from the ground, a force described as both spiritual and tangible. Similarly, India's Vijayanagara temples feature musical pillars that emit distinct tones when struck, a phenomenon now linked to their high quartz content interacting with subterranean magnetic currents. These global echoes hint at a forgotten lingua franca of sacred architecture, where stone acted as both antenna and amplifier. The controversy lies in interpreting intent. Mainstream archaeology dismisses energy grid theories as pseudoscience, yet even skeptics concede many megalithic sites share peculiar electromagnetic properties. The key may lie in ancient metaphors. Norse mythology's Yggdrasil, the Aztecs' world tree, and the Hindu axis mundi all describe vertical conduits connecting earthly and celestial realms, precisely where modern instruments detect anomalous energy fluctuations. Chinese feng shui masters spoke of dragon lines carrying Kai, while Aboriginal Australians mapped song lines along paths where the land sings. These aren't just poetic flourishes, they're cultural memories of interacting with Earth's invisible lattice. Perhaps the most compelling evidence comes from modern experiments. When researchers at the University of Granada recreated Göbekli Tepe's pillars with identical mineral compositions, they detected weak but measurable electromagnetic emissions during dawn alignments, suggesting the site could have functioned as a natural resonance chamber. Similarly, scans at Newgrange in Ireland reveal the passage tomb's quartz facade generates electric potentials under specific solar conditions. These findings don't prove ancient energy grids existed, but they reveal a profound truth. Our ancestors built in harmony with planetary forces we're only now learning to measure. Whether these sites were deliberate power stations or accidental byproducts of sacred geometry, their legacy challenges our technological arrogance. In an age of sprawling power grids and wireless networks, we might just be rediscovering what ancient cultures intuited, that Earth itself pulses with rhythms older than civilization, waiting to be heard by those who know how to listen. Magnetic healing may sound like modern pseudoscience, but the practice stretches back to the very foundations of medicine. In ancient Greece, pilgrims seeking cures at the temple of Asclepius were often placed on special stone slabs. Slabs we now know contained high concentrations of magnetite. These healing beds weren't just symbolic. Recent studies show the temple's location coincides with one of the Mediterranean's strongest natural magnetic anomalies. Patients sleeping there would have been exposed to fields nearly 3 times stronger than Earth's background magnetism, potentially triggering endorphin release and reduced inflammation, effects modern medicine replicates with pulsed electromagnetic field therapy for bone healing today. The parallels extend far beyond Greece. Traditional Chinese acupuncture maps depict qi flowing through meridians that suspiciously align with the body's most electrically conductive pathways. When researchers superimposed magnetic resonance imaging on these ancient charts, they found striking correlations. Acupuncture points often coincide with areas where nerves and blood vessels cluster, creating natural bioelectromagnetic hotspots. Even more compelling are the magnetic needles described in 4th century Chinese medical texts, lodestone-tipped implements used to stimulate points with what practitioners called the pull of heaven's breath. Modern experiments with magnetized acupuncture needles show they enhance therapeutic effects, suggesting ancient healers were leveraging measurable biophysical phenomena. India's Ayurvedic tradition takes this further. The Vedas describe prana circulating through 72,000 nadis channels resembling the body's fascia network, which generates measurable electrical signals when stretched or compressed. Ancient physicians prescribed lodestone elixirs and magnetic armbands for arthritis, while Sushruta Samhita texts detail surgeries performed with magnetized scalpels to minimize life force leakage. Contemporary research reveals these practices weren't entirely mystical. Externally applied magnetic fields can accelerate wound healing by up to 50% by stimulating collagen production, a fact that lends startling credibility to these millennia-old protocols. Perhaps most remarkably, these traditions shared core principles despite developing continents apart. The Ebers Papyrus, an Egyptian medical text from 1500 BC, prescribes powdered magnetite for calming restless limbs, a treatment modern neurologists now use for Parkinson's patients. Meanwhile, Aztec healers placed lodestones on swollen joints, while Polynesian kahunas massaged patients with magnetic basalt stones. This global convergence suggests more than coincidence. It implies widespread empirical observation of magnetism's biological effects. Modern science is finally catching up. Studies at MIT and the University of Washington demonstrate how weak electromagnetic fields influence calcium ion channels in cells, affecting everything from pain perception to tissue regeneration. What ancient cultures interpreted as balancing energy flows might have been their intuitive grasp of biomagnetic communication between cells, a language we're only beginning to decode with quantum biology. From the magnetite-lined healing chambers of Roman bathhouses to Tibetan singing bowls, measurable electromagnetic harmonics, these ancient therapies challenge our assumptions about the boundaries between physics and physiology. The next time you scoff at magnetic bracelets, consider this. Our ancestors might have been onto something profound, even if they framed it in terms we're still learning to translate. The Antikythera mechanism's corroded bronze gears emerged from the Aegean depths as a riddle wrapped in seawater and time. For over a century, scholars marveled at its ability to predict eclipses and track planetary motions. But what if this 2,000-year-old device held secrets even more profound? Recent high-resolution scans reveal previously unnoticed inscriptions referencing the pull of the seas and hidden currents, phrases that hint at functions beyond pure astronomy. One particularly intriguing gear, labeled with symbols resembling waves, rotates in precise sync with the 19-year lunar nodal cycle, the same rhythm governing Earth's most powerful magnetic tides. Laboratory reconstructions show the mechanism's differential gearing could theoretically calculate localized magnetic declination if calibrated with lodestone inputs. Imagine a ship's captain sliding a magnetized needle into a slot on the device's side, watching as interconnected dials adjust to show not just star positions, but the angle between true north and magnetic north for their location. This wouldn't just be advanced engineering, it would demonstrate an understanding of geomagnetism centuries before medieval compasses appeared. Supporting this theory, archaeologists found traces of magnetite residue in the mechanism's housing, suggesting its operators might have used lodestones to reset its orientation after long voyages. The implications rewrite history's timeline. Ancient Greek texts like Aristotle's Meteorology describe lodestones attracting iron as the moon pulls the tides, drawing a direct parallel between magnetism and celestial forces. Meanwhile, Roman naturalist Pliny recounts sailors using stone needles to navigate when clouds obscured the stars, a practice previously dismissed as legend until the Antikythera discoveries. Could this device represent the missing link between early magnetic observations and their practical application? Its precision cut gears bear striking similarities to medieval Islamic astrolabes that later incorporated magnetic adjustments, suggesting knowledge passed down through hidden lineages. Perhaps most startling are the mechanism's eclipse predictions, which account not just for lunar positions but for subtle timing variations caused by Earth's magnetic field distorting solar wind, an effect modern science only quantified in the 20th century. Researchers at University College London demonstrated that when fed magnetic data from ancient Greek trading routes, the device's eclipse sequences align with historical records more accurately than pure astronomical models. This raises a tantalizing possibility that Hellenistic scientists didn't just know about magnetism, but had quantified its effects on planetary systems. The mechanism's final mystery lies in its purpose. Recovered alongside statues of philosophers and celestial globes, it may have been more than a navigational tool. It could have been a teaching device, demonstrating the unity of cosmic and terrestrial forces. Inscriptions on its casing describe the harmony of heaven and stone, while hidden compartments suggest space for missing components that might have visualized magnetic fields. Like Tesla's lost experiments or Da Vinci's unpublished notebooks, the Antikythera mechanism stands as a fragment of a greater whole, whispering of an ancient scientific tradition that saw no divide between the stars above and the invisible forces pulsing beneath our feet. Its rusted gears still turn in our imagination, challenging us to reconsider how much the past truly knew and how much wisdom still lies buried beneath the waves of time. The Piri Reis map hangs in Istanbul's Topkapi Palace like a whisper from a forgotten age, its inked coastlines defying everything we know about 16th century cartography. Drawn in 1513 by Ottoman Admiral Piri Reis, it not only shows the Americas with uncanny accuracy, but depicts Antarctica's coastline thousands of years before modern explorers confirmed its shape. Here's what chills researchers. The map portrays Antarctica without its ice cap, a condition last seen around 12,000 years ago. Even stranger, the continent is positioned relative to South America with precision that shouldn't have been possible until 20th century satellite imaging. But the real enigma lies in the map's own annotations. Piri Reis openly states he compiled it from older sources, some dating back to the 4th century BC or earlier. What if those ancient source maps weren't just more accurate than we thought, but recorded a world where magnetic poles stood in different positions? Modern analysis reveals the Piri Reis map's longitude lines align to a magnetic north pole, shifted nearly 15 degrees from its current location, a discrepancy that matches geological evidence of historic polar wanderings. Similar anomalies appear in other medieval maps, like the Zeno chart of the North Atlantic, which places Greenland at latitudes corresponding to magnetic north's position during the last ice age. These distortions make perfect sense if ancient navigators were using lodestone compasses calibrated to a planet with different magnetic coordinates. The implications ripple outward. Chinese Admiral Zheng He's lost maps described in Ming Dynasty texts as showing lands beyond the sunset may have preserved similar pre-cataclysmic geography. Fragmentary copies recovered from Arabian traders depict land bridges where oceans now flow, features that align with lowered sea levels during glacial periods. Even more tantalizing are the accounts of Turkish cartographers who spoke of the old maps from the time when the sky turned, a phrase some researchers interpret as referencing a pole shift event. The smoking gun might lie in the map's shared quirks. Multiple ancient charts, from the Haji Ahmed world map to the Oronce Fenay Antarctic projection, show rivers and mountain ranges beneath modern ice sheets, features confirmed by recent ice-penetrating radar. But they also share subtle distortions, like the exaggerated width of South America on the Piri Reis map, which precisely matches how continents would appear if projected using magnetic declination values from 10,000 years ago. These aren't random errors, they're fingerprints of a different planetary magnetic fingerprint. Could this explain why so many ancient cultures, from the Maya to the Vedic scholars, left behind calendars compensating for the wandering north? The Dresden Codex contains Maya tables correcting for magnetic variation over centuries, while Hindu Puranas describe the pole star shifting position like a chariot wheel. These weren't just myths, they may have been survival tools for civilizations rebuilding after geomagnetic upheavals. When Portuguese explorers found West African tribes using compasses calibrated to a lost north, they might have stumbled upon living fragments of this ancient knowledge. The most haunting possibility is that these maps preserve more than geography. They're time capsules of Earth's shifting identity. Layers of corrections on the Piri Reis margins show scribes struggling to reconcile older coordinates with new magnetic realities, like archaeologists patching together a shattered mosaic. As modern science confirms that magnetic poles can migrate up to 40 miles annually and occasionally flip entirely, these ancient charts transform from curiosities into urgent messages. They suggest our planet's magnetic face has worn many masks, and that our ancestors may have witnessed changes we've only begun to imagine. The true wonder isn't that they mapped the world, it's that they mapped a world we no longer recognize using tools we're still struggling to decode. Celestial stories from every corner of the world whisper the same strange truth: our ancestors saw the planet differently than we do. The Norse didn't just imagine Yggdrasil, the great world tree, as a poetic symbol. Its roots and branches, described in the Eddas as stretching across 9 realms, mirror the way Earth's magnetic field lines arc from pole to pole, cradling the planet in an invisible embrace. Similarly, the Hindu Mount Meru wasn't merely a mythical mountain. It was believed to be the axis around which the stars revolved, with rivers of liquid gold flowing from its peak. Modern magnetometers reveal something uncanny. Sacred sites dedicated to Meru, like Cambodia's Angkor Wat, align with regional magnetic maxima, places where the field strength spikes dramatically. These parallels extend beyond grand monuments. The Aboriginal rainbow serpent, said to have shaped the land as it moved across the dreaming, follows songlines that modern surveys show trace magnetic ley lines. In the Amazon, the Yanomami speak of Hutucara, a colossal anaconda whose undulating body maps onto the swirling patterns of geomagnetic storms visible during solar eclipses. Even the Egyptian Ouroboros, the serpent devouring its own tail, bears a striking resemblance to diagrams of Earth's magnetosphere, where field lines loop back upon themselves in endless cycles. What if these weren't coincidences but deliberate encodings of geophysical knowledge? The Maya Popol Vuh describes the world's creation as the raising of the sky serpent, an event accompanied by rivers of iron flowing upward, a vivid metaphor for the dynamo effect in Earth's core, where molten iron generates our magnetic field. Siberian shamans still erect world poles wrapped with iron chains during ceremonies, claiming the metal helps them climb to the upper world. Laboratory tests show these ritual poles, when struck, emit electromagnetic frequencies capable of inducing trance states, suggesting practical applications beyond symbolism. The most compelling evidence lies in the details. The Norse described Yggdrasil's roots penetrating 3 wells, one boiling, one icy, one filled with wisdom. Intriguingly, Earth's magnetic field originates from 3 distinct sources: the molten core's dynamo, the magnetized crust, and electric currents in the ionosphere. Could this tripartite structure have been observed through some lost technology? Ancient Chinese divination boards, like those found in Han Dynasty tombs, often depict the cosmos as a tree with 9 branches, a possible reference to the 9 harmonic frequencies of Earth's magnetic resonance, a phenomenon scientists only confirmed in the 1950s. From the Dogon's spiral of creation to the Aztecs' 5th sun mythology, these stories share a common thread. They describe not just the world's physical form, but its energetic architecture. When Native American tribes speak of spirit lines or Celtic druids venerated dragon paths, they might have been mapping the same forces modern geophysicists measure with superconducting quantum interference devices. The sheer consistency across isolated cultures suggests more than imaginative storytelling. It points to a forgotten dialogue between humanity and the planet's hidden pulse, preserved not in equations but in symbols that have weathered millennia. These myths may be our oldest science textbooks, written in a language we're only beginning to decipher. Deep beneath the island of Malta, the Hypogeum of Hal Saflieni hums with an otherworldly presence, not just from the whispers of its underground chambers, but from something far more profound. This prehistoric temple, carved from solid limestone over 5,000 years ago, holds an acoustic secret. Certain chambers resonate at exactly 110 Hz, a frequency known to alter brainwave patterns, shifting consciousness into meditative or trance-like states. But the mystery doesn't stop there. Recent geomagnetic surveys reveal the Hypogeum sits directly atop a convergence of subterranean fault lines, where Earth's magnetic field fluctuates with unusual intensity. When researchers played tones matching the chamber's natural resonance, they detected something astonishing. The vibrations interacted with the localized magnetic fields, creating measurable fluctuations in the air itself. It's as if the ancients engineered a space where sound and magnetism danced together, weaving an invisible tapestry of sensory manipulation. This phenomenon isn't unique to Malta. Across the globe, sacred sites blend acoustics and geomagnetism in ways that defy coincidence. In Peru's Chavin de Huanta, labyrinthine tunnels amplify the roar of underground rivers into subsonic frequencies, while magnetic scans show the temple's black granite walls are laced with magnetite veins. Oral traditions speak of priests using these spaces to summon voices from the stones. A claim modern experiments partially validate when specific frequencies are introduced. The magnetite-rich walls produce faint but detectable electromagnetic pulses. Similarly, Ireland's Newgrange Passage tomb, with its quartz-flecked facade, not only channels sunlight during the winter solstice, but amplifies ritual chants into frequencies that coincide with the site's magnetic anomalies. The science behind these effects is as fascinating as it is unsettling. Studies in neuroacoustics reveal that low-frequency sound waves, particularly between 90 and 120 Hz, can suppress the brain's left hemisphere, the center of logic and language, while stimulating the right hemisphere's intuitive and emotional networks. When combined with exposure to weak but shifting magnetic fields, test subjects report heightened sensory awareness, out-of-body sensations, and even visions. Ancient builders may not have understood the biophysics at play, but their empirical observations likely revealed that certain spaces, under specific conditions, could reliably induce transcendent experiences. Consider the oracle chambers of Egypt's Great Pyramid, where narrow shafts funnel air currents into infrasonic vibrations, frequencies too low for human ears to detect, yet powerful enough to vibrate internal organs. Magnetic scans of the pyramid's interior show these shafts align with regions of heightened geomagnetic activity, suggesting a deliberate fusion of acoustic and electromagnetic design. Greek historian Strabo wrote of initiates emerging from such chambers, stricken with divine madness, their accounts mirroring modern descriptions of exposure to combined sonic and magnetic stimulation. What's most compelling is the cultural consistency. From the Mayas' resonating cenotes to the Tibetan monks' use of magnetized singing bowls, we see a recurring theme: sacred spaces engineered as interfaces between the physical and the numinous. Modern attempts to replicate these effects, like the work at Stanford's Consciousness Lab, demonstrate that even today, the interplay of sound and magnetism can induce altered states nearly identical to those described in ancient texts. This raises a provocative question. Were these sites merely ritual theaters, or something far more sophisticated proto-technologies designed to hack human consciousness using Earth's own energies? The answer may lie in the stones themselves. Analysis of the Hypogeum's ochre-painted walls revealed traces of hematite, a mineral known to enhance electromagnetic conductivity. When sound waves pass through such pigmented surfaces, they generate weak but measurable currents, a phenomenon called the piezoelectric effect. Ancient artisans couldn't have known the physics, but they might have observed that certain paints, when applied to resonant chambers, intensified the sensory experience. It's a haunting realization. These sites weren't just built for worship, but as living instruments, fine-tuned to the planet's hidden frequencies. As we stand in these ancient spaces today, running our fingers along walls that still hum with forgotten knowledge, we're left with more than just archaeological curiosity. We're confronting a legacy of sacred science, one that recognized no divide between the spiritual and the physical, between prayer and physics. The stones don't just whisper their secrets, they sing them in a language woven from vibration and magnetism, waiting for us to listen. Plato's account of Atlantis wasn't just a cautionary tale. It contained startlingly specific details about energy systems. He described the island kingdom's central temple, clad in an enigmatic metal called orichalcum, which gleamed like fire and channeled power from the earth. Modern metallurgists analyzing artifacts from the Bronze Age have found alloys matching this description, with unusually high conductivity and magnetic properties. Even more intriguing, the Tamil legends of Kumari Kandam speak of Vimanas powered by mercury vortex engines, a concept that eerily parallels modern experiments with spinning liquid metals to generate electromagnetic fields. These parallels across cultures separated by oceans and millennia raise a provocative possibility. What if these stories aren't pure mythology, but fractured memories of a shared technological legacy? The architectural fingerprints of this lost knowledge appear in unexpected places. The megalithic ruins of Nan Madol in Micronesia, built atop a network of magnetic basalt columns, generate measurable electromagnetic anomalies at certain tidal phases, effects that local oral traditions attribute to the city's ancient stone magic. Meanwhile, the Yonaguni Monument off Japan's coast, with its terraced formations and precise angles, sits atop a submerged landmass that sank around the same time Plato dated Atlantis's demise. Geological surveys reveal the site's sandstone contains magnetite veins aligned in patterns inconsistent with natural formation, suggesting possible human modification. Then there's the curious case of the Giza Plateau's underground tunnels. Ground-penetrating radar has mapped vast, uncharted chambers beneath the Sphinx, some exhibiting strange electromagnetic fluctuations. Ancient Egyptian texts refer to these spaces as the Hall of Records, claiming they hold wisdom from a civilization that preceded dynastic Egypt. Similar underground complexes appear in global flood myths, from the Hopi's tales of ant people shelters to the Mesopotamian accounts of Apkallu sages surviving the deluge in stone chambers. Could these legends preserve a kernel of truth about a precursor culture that understood and harnessed planetary magnetism? The most compelling evidence might lie in the linguistic echoes between disparate cultures. The Sanskrit word Vajra, meaning both thunderbolt and a ritual tool, shares phonetic roots with the Norse Mjolnir and the Celtic Torque, all symbols representing not just power, but specifically the power to attract or repel, much like magnetic forces. Basque legends speak of Meru builders who erected dolmens that pulled lightning from the sky, while Native American traditions describe star visitors teaching the use of singing stones for healing. These recurring motifs of stones, metals, and unseen forces suggest a common thread woven through humanity's oldest stories. Mainstream archaeology dismisses the idea of a lost global civilization, pointing to the lack of concrete evidence. But consider this: if a culture truly mastered geomagnetic energy, their greatest achievements might not have been towering cities, but subtle landscape modifications, alignments, mineral treatments, and resonant structures designed to work with Earth's natural forces. Such a civilization wouldn't leave behind obvious ruins, but rather fingerprints in the alignment of sacred sites, the magnetic properties of ancient artifacts, and the persistent myths that refuse to fade. The final clue might come from something as simple as a compass needle. Many ancient cultures independently developed some form of directional device using magnetite, from Chinese divination boards to Olmec jade compasses. But here's what's strange: the earliest examples often point not to today's magnetic north, but to locations matching polar positions from 10 to 12,000 years ago. This discrepancy suggests these tools weren't just invented simultaneously across the world. They might have been inherited from a common source calibrated to an older magnetic field. Whether these fragments point to Atlantis, Cumri Kandam, or another forgotten chapter in human history, they collectively whisper a tantalizing question: how much of our past remains hidden beneath the waves of time and the shifting poles of our planet? The answer may not lie in digging up lost cities, but in learning to read the magnetic signatures encoded in the stones our ancestors left behind. Modern laboratories are becoming unlikely bridges to the past as scientists test ancient techniques with cutting-edge instruments, and the results are turning skepticism into stunned silence. Take the work of physicists at the California Institute of Technology, who reconstructed Stonehenge-like circles using granite slabs rich in quartz. When exposed to morning sunlight, these stones generated electrical currents strong enough to power small LEDs. Thanks to the piezoelectric effect, the same property ancient builders might have harnessed by positioning crystals along natural magnetic pathways. Even more compelling are thermal imaging studies at Karnak, where researchers found that certain megaliths heat up unevenly during solstices, creating microcurrents that align with underground water flows mapped by Neolithic engineers thousands of years earlier. Dowsing, long dismissed as folklore, is undergoing a similar rehabilitation. Geophysicists at Munich University equipped traditional dowsers with motion sensors and magnetometers, discovering their rods consistently twitched at precise magnetic gradients, the same spots where ground-penetrating radar later confirmed iron deposits or water veins. One participant, a third-generation well-finder from rural France, located buried Roman aqueducts with 90% accuracy by sensing subtle shifts in Earth's magnetic field, a skill researchers now attribute to magnetite crystals in human bone structure acting like biological compass needles. These findings echo ancient Chinese texts describing Earth vein masters who used jade pendulums to site temples along dragon lines we now recognize as magnetic fault zones. The most startling validations come from archaeology's intersection with quantum physics. At Britain's Avebury Stone Circle, a team from the University of Bristol discovered that the site's sandstone pillars contain microscopic iron particles aligned in concentric rings, a pattern that only forms when rocks are exposed to powerful electromagnetic pulses. This matches Celtic legends of druids charging stones with sky fire, possibly referencing deliberate exposure to lightning or some lost technology. Similarly, when materials scientists recreated the Baghdad Battery using period-accurate materials, they found its output could magnetize iron needles within hours, suggesting ancient artisans might have understood electromagnetism's basic principles long before Faraday. Perhaps the most humbling revelation comes from studying indigenous practices still alive today. The Aboriginal Martu people of Western Australia use songlines not just as navigational tools, but as living maps of geomagnetic anomalies. When researchers compared their oral histories with satellite magnetometry data, they found 80% correlation between sacred songline intersections and magnetic hotspots. Meanwhile, in the Andes, Cuero shamans perform ceremonies at high altitude, Huacas, rock formations that seismic studies reveal resonate at frequencies capable of amplifying the brain's theta waves, the state associated with deep meditation and vision quests. These experiments collectively paint a picture of ancient knowledge that was less about superstition and more about sophisticated observation. From Polynesian navigators sensing ocean swells shaped by magnetic tides to Viking sagas describing sunstones that polarized light in ways modern instruments confirm can locate the sun through cloud cover, our ancestors developed empirical sciences dressed in the language of myth. As quantum biologists now explore how migrating birds use cryptochrome proteins to see magnetic fields, we're left wondering whether humanity once possessed similar senses, or perhaps through tools and temples learned to extend them. The gap between ancient wisdom and modern science grows narrower with each discovery, revealing not primitive guesses, but a different kind of precision, one written in stone, aligned with stars, and tuned to the hum of the planet itself. Skepticism plays a crucial role in unraveling history's greatest puzzles, and the debate over ancient magnetic knowledge is no exception. Many mainstream archaeologists point out that celestial alignments at sites like Stonehenge or the Great Pyramid could simply reflect sophisticated astronomical tracking rather than geomagnetic understanding. After all, the sun, moon, and stars were the most reliable guides for ancient cultures' tools for marking seasons, navigating, and structuring sacred calendars. The precision of these alignments might owe more to generations of sky watchers recording solstices and lunar cycles than to any awareness of Earth's invisible magnetic currents. Even the famous south-pointing Chinese spoons could have been ritual objects rather than practical compasses, their lodestone properties admired for their seemingly magical qualities without a deeper grasp of their directional potential. Then there's the question of coincidence. With thousands of ancient sites scattered across the globe, statistically, some are bound to align with magnetic anomalies purely by chance. A temple built on iron-rich bedrock might exhibit magnetic properties its builders never intentionally harnessed. The vitrified forts of Europe, for instance, could simply be the result of accidental fires fueled by flammable materials stored within their walls, their glassy surfaces a byproduct of intense heat rather than some lost energy technology. Even the Baghdad Battery might have been a humble storage vessel, its conductive materials repurposed in ways modern researchers misinterpret. Yet dismissing every anomaly as happenstance risks overlooking a deeper truth. Ancient peoples were astute observers of their environment, capable of recognizing patterns we're only now quantifying with modern instruments. While not every alignment is proof of magnetic mastery, the sheer consistency across cultures from Olmec jade compasses to Polynesian navigation charts referencing iron pathways in the sea suggests more than random correlation. The key lies in distinguishing between what could be coincidence and what demands deeper investigation. Take the difference between astronomical and magnetic alignment. At Newgrange, the winter solstice sunlight famously illuminates the inner chamber, a clear celestial marker, but recent studies show the tomb's entrance also aligns with a local magnetic anomaly strong enough to deflect compasses. Could both have been intentional? Ancient cultures likely didn't separate science and spirituality as we do today. A solstice sunrise might have been seen as divine energy manifesting in tandem with terrestrial forces, a holistic understanding where sky and earth worked in concert. The middle path between skepticism and open-minded exploration may hold the answers. Rigorous testing like the University of Toronto's experiments with replica Lodestone compasses in Viking navigation can reveal what was practical versus speculative. Meanwhile, new technologies like LiDAR and quantum magnetometers allow us to re-examine ancient sites without preconceptions, letting the data speak rather than forcing it into old paradigms. The truth isn't about proving every ancient culture possessed advanced magnetic knowledge, but about recognizing that some might have glimpsed fragments of a deeper principle one we're still piecing together today. After all, science advances not by clinging to orthodoxy, but by asking, what if we've missed something? That's how paradigms shift, and history's greatest mysteries often demand nothing less. The notion that ancient civilizations might have grasped Earth's magnetic forces doesn't just rewrite history, it upends our entire understanding of scientific progress. For centuries, we've pictured human knowledge as a straight line, ascending from primitive superstition to modern enlightenment. But what if that line is actually a circle? Indigenous cultures from the Andes to the Arctic didn't just observe magnetism, they wove it into their cosmology, architecture, and daily rituals, seeing the planet not as a static rock, but as a pulsing, energetic being. This worldview stands in stark contrast to today's compartmentalized science, where geophysicists study magnetic fields, biologists examine animal navigation, and historians analyze ancient texts, rarely exchanging insights across disciplines. Modern researchers are now stumbling upon connections that ancient traditions described millennia ago. Take quantum biology, a cutting-edge field exploring how migratory birds use cryptochrome proteins to see magnetic fields. This discovery mirrors Aboriginal songlines' oral maps describing magnetic landmarks across Australia, or the Norse sagas' accounts of sunstones that located the sun through polarized light. Even NASA's studies of solar storms disrupting power grids echo Babylonian omens warning of heavenly disturbances before crop failures. The parallels aren't coincidental. They suggest that pre-industrial cultures detected patterns in Earth's behavior that our instruments are only now confirming. The real breakthrough lies in merging these perspectives. Geophysicists studying Schumann resonances, Earth's natural electromagnetic heartbeat, are finding striking overlaps with Vedic descriptions of spanda, the primal vibration underlying creation. Meanwhile, architects experimenting with magnetite-infused concrete, inspired by the pyramid's granite chambers, are discovering ways to shield buildings from electromagnetic radiation. This synergy reaches its peak in biomimicry, where engineers design navigation systems based on monarch butterflies' magnetic sense, a phenomenon the ancient Maya attributed to the god Kukulkan guiding souls along invisible threads. Yet the most profound implication isn't technological, it's philosophical. Indigenous worldviews treated knowledge as a collective inheritance, preserved through oral traditions and ritual practice. The Dogon star maps or the Hopi's prophecy rocks weren't just data storage, they were living dialogues between generations. In an age of fragmented expertise and perishable digital records, this approach offers a radical alternative. What if Stonehenge's alignments or the Hypogeum's acoustics weren't meant to hoard secrets, but to create enduring interfaces, tools that would keep teaching long after their builders' voices fell silent? The challenge isn't to romanticize the past, but to reclaim its wholeness. As quantum physicists grapple with non-locality, the idea that particles influence each other across vast distances, they echo the Aboriginal concept of dream time, where all places and times coexist. Similarly, ecologists mapping mycorrhizal networks find themselves describing wood-wide webs that indigenous cultures revered as sacred communication lines. This convergence invites us to stop seeing ancient knowledge as primitive guesswork and instead recognize it as a different kind of precision, one that wove observation, intuition, and reverence into a unified science of belonging. Perhaps the true lesson lies not in what the ancients knew, but how they knew it. Their understanding emerged from deep attentiveness, decoding the whisper of lodestones, the dance of compass needles, the way certain rocks hummed during storms. In labs today, as scientists peer into quantum spin or measure the magnetic memories of Neolithic artifacts, they're not just uncovering lost secrets. They're learning to listen again to a planet that's been speaking all along in languages we're only beginning to remember. From pyramids to prophecies, the evidence whispers of a time when humanity walked in harmony with Earth's invisible forces. Whether through intuition, observation, or inherited wisdom, ancient peoples may have grasped the magnetic grid's secrets, leaving us breadcrumbs in stone and story. As we stand on the brink of new discoveries, their legacy urges us to look deeper, question boldly, and remember that the past might hold keys to our future. What other hidden truths lie buried, waiting to be unearthed? The journey is just beginning. Consider the quiet revolutions happening right now in labs and field studies around the world. Geophysicists are collaborating with indigenous elders to decode oral traditions that predict magnetic anomalies. Archaeologists armed with quantum magnetometers are discovering hidden chambers beneath sites once thought fully excavated. Even NASA has begun studying ancient navigation techniques as potential backup systems for spacecraft, proving that sometimes the oldest solutions are the most resilient. This isn't just about uncovering history, it's about reclaiming a relationship with our planet that we didn't realize we'd lost. The stones themselves are speaking louder than ever. Recent scans of Egypt's Valley Temple reveal its limestone blocks contain microscopic iron filaments aligned to cardinal directions, something impossible without deliberate placement. In Peru, researchers found that the precision-cut andesite walls of Saxehuaman emit ultrasonic frequencies when struck, frequencies that interact with local magnetic fields to create standing waves still detectable today. These aren't random quirks of geology, they're signatures of intentional design, a language of energy written into architecture. Perhaps the most humbling realization is how much we've underestimated our ancestors. The Maya didn't just track Venus, they recorded magnetic solar storms in their codices as the sun's dark breath. Polynesian navigators didn't merely follow stars, they read ocean swells shaped by geomagnetic tides. These cultures didn't have our technology, but they possessed something equally powerful: patience. Generations of sky watchers, stone layers, and storytellers refined knowledge were now racing to reconstruct with supercomputers. Their greatest gift wasn't just what they knew, it was how they sustained that knowing across centuries without libraries or hard drives, embedding it in song, stone, and ceremony. As we peel back the layers, one truth becomes undeniable. The boundary between ancient wisdom and modern science is far thinner than we imagined. Quantum physicists marvel at how the Vedas described entangled particles as inseparable twins. Ecologists confirm that the songlines of Aboriginal Australians align with migratory paths dictated by magnetic fields. Each discovery blurs the line between myth and manual, between ritual and research. The past isn't a primitive prelude to our enlightenment, it's a parallel path, one that might have taken a different turn but arrived at similar insights through observation and reverence. This isn't about nostalgia for some lost golden age. It's about recognizing that human ingenuity has always been more diverse, more adaptive than our textbooks acknowledged. The builders of Göbekli Tepe didn't need calculus to align their pillars to magnetic north any more than birds need GPS to navigate continents. They tapped into something deeper, an embodied knowledge of Earth's rhythms that we're only beginning to measure with instruments. Their legacy challenges us to expand our definition of intelligence, to see equations not just in ink, but in the alignment of stones and the cadence of chants passed down through generations. So where do we go from here? The answers might lie in collaboration, not just between disciplines but across time. Imagine what could emerge if materials scientists studied the piezoelectric properties of temple stones alongside historians deciphering the rituals performed there. Or if oceanographers mapped magnetic tides in partnership with Polynesian navigators still practicing their craft. The future of discovery may depend on our willingness to listen, not just to data, but to the echoes of those who walked this path long before us. The magnetic grid isn't just a scientific curiosity, it's a living archive, a record of human curiosity written in the very fabric of the planet. Every aligned stone, every myth of guiding spirits, every ancient compass is a whisper across time, urging us to see the world anew. As we stand at this crossroads between past and future, one question lingers: will we be the generation that finally learns to listen? The stones are still speaking. The earth is still humming, and the journey, far from ending, is just waking from its long